Welcome to the Inner Hoe Uprising, the podcast about sex, love, and dating from the perspective of me, Sam, one black, non-monogamous, pansexual, feminist hoe who is socially distancing, sick of virtual recording, and still down for the resistance. And my pronouns are she and her.
And me, Rodeka, a fat black non-monogamous. Oh my God! Wow,
Phenomena.
I haven't messed up on my opening in so long. Wow, yeah. A fat black non-monogamous transhumanist existentialist femme trying to figure out her place on this big ass floating rock, this problematic ass floating rock. Who the fuck knows what's happening? I'm just trying to figure it all out.
That's a cool name for Earth. The problematic floating rock.
Yeah. As far as we know, the most problematic one out there because there ain't nothing else. So, goddamn.
Good point. Every episode of the Inner Hoe Uprising works exactly like this. Existential talks all the fucking time. Myself and my lovely rotating co-hosts talk about sex, love, and dating as it pertains to current events in the world, our lives, and yours. And occasionally we hit you with interviews with insightful folks or do deep dive episodes on a topic of our choice. On this episode specifically, we are talking about love and Black joy in the midst of resistance, debuting a new segment, talking all about why the decriminalization of sex work is very much a part of the movement to defend Black lives. Rodeka is going to talk about the activist formerly known as Rodeka, plus we'll offer some advice for a first-time threesome.
Hey, and if you would like to follow along with the conversation had on this podcast on social media, you can do so by using the hashtag Hoe Uprising so we can see it, and the hashtag PodIn so other people can see it. And if you would like to follow us on social media, you can do so at Hoe Uprising without the G on Twitter, Hoe Uprising on Instagram and Facebook. And you can join our Facebook group by searching Hoe Uprising, CUMMUNITY.
UNITY.
And head to HoeUprising.com to sign up for weekly goodies via our newsletter, Pay a Hoe, or check out our merch. Please check out our merch.
Yeah, there's 2 t-shirts. They always sit right next to me.
Ready to be bought.
They're ready for you.
Yeah.
If you are freaking with the vision and down with the vibes, you can do us a favor and hit subscribe.
Ooh.
If you're supportive of the hoes and want to see our success spike, do us a favor and click like.
Hey.
If you want to keep the conversation going during your time spent, do us a favor and comment.
Ooh.
And we're going to need you to please click that subscribe bell. Otherwise, you know where you're going? To hell. The last part is not true.
I just see you sitting in your room just like, yo, I'm about to drop fucking bars on these people out here. They don't even know.
Niggas
they don't
do
even know. They do.
It's me.
I'm niggas.
And if you want to pay us to speak virtually at your school or conference about sex positivity, Black feminism, podcasting, existentialist crises, our former rap careers, or other kinds of topics we discuss on this here show, we would love to. We would also love to host a consent, pleasure, or dating virtual workshop for your school or organization. So if you're down with any of that, you can book us by sending us a line to ihupodcast@gmail.com. That email address is in the show notes. And now we're getting into a segment called Hoe of the Week. Hoe of the Week is where we shout out the homies who have supported Inner Hoe Uprising in the past week. Hoes of the Week get special nicknames, and the game, if they choose to participate, is to guess the meaning behind the nickname.
Ooh.
We have many, many Hoes of the Week this week. We got lots and lots of support. Also, we didn't do Hoe of the Week last week, so some of those are rolling over. So our Hoes of the Week this week are Morgan H, a.k.a. Sadie, who left us some donations in PayPal. Michaela F, a.k.a. Spicy Salmon, or Salmon, depending on how you say that word, who also left us some donations on PayPal. How do you say that word?
Salmon.
Okay.
I don't know. I maybe that's like a cultural thing for people who say salmon. I have to stop thinking in a lens of like the way I say things is correct. Because for a long time I had a fight over basil and basil, and then I realized like but like everybody in the UK says Basil, so I was just wrong. I just wrong. So yeah,
there you go.
Yeah.
You never know. You never know. We got Jennifer B, aka Benny, who also left some donations in the PayPal. Bina O, aka Ben's Punani, who became a patron on Patreon. We got Jay Dooley, aka Dooley, who became a patron on Patreon and sent money to the PayPal. We got Gloria B, aka Olive, who left some donations in PayPal. T Ray Ray gotta bark his name, upped his pledge on Patreon. Thank you, T Ray Ray.
T Ray, you're amazing.
Yeah, T Ray Ray puts his money where his mouth is. Yeah. Susan L, aka Suze, who left us some money on PayPal and wrote a very gracious note. Whitney W, aka the WWF, because we don't fuck with the WWE anymore because Vince McMahon is racist, unfortunately.
That's a fact.
Yeah. Who became a patron on Patreon. We got Joanna M, aka Joanna Joestar, who became a patron on Patreon. Thank you. I do try with these.
They're all good. But when I know the reference straight up, that's when I'm like, great. There you go. That's exactly. It's very self-centered.
Hey, that's all you know. Genevieve S, aka Genevieve La Vida, who became a patron on Patreon. Mira H, who his nickname is Mad Helpful, and upped her pledge on Patreon twice. We love to see it. Thank you, Mira. Beatrice O, aka Beats, who became a patron on Patreon. Asia S, who dropped some money in the PayPal. Your nickname is All Star. Or maybe, hey, now you're an all-star, get your game on, go play. Maybe that's your full name.
Let's just do the whole thing. That's what it is. Imagine just referring to someone like that in conversations all the time. I would be pissed, but it's that.
Just raise your hand in class. Yes, hey, now you're an all-star, get your game on, go play. What's the answer?
Just no one reacts to it. Everyone's just sitting there like it's the most normal thing. That's the only circumstance I want it to be.
Because it was normalized right here.
It is written. There you go.
We're not done. We got Bex, who your nickname is Bex because that's cool. And you became a patron on Patreon. Thank you. We got Mashonda, aka Shonda, who became a patron on Patreon. We got Kaya, whose nickname has to be My Neck, My Back. I don't care how problematic the actual Kaya is or whatever. Your nickname is My Neck, My Back. And on a good day, it's My Pussy and My Crack. And they left a patron. This is so ridiculous.
Good day.
They left some money in PayPal and a kind note. Thank you, My Pussy and My Crack. And we got Hannah J. And your nickname is Handjob. And we thank you for becoming.
we thank you. And we thank you.
Really, I had a lot on my mind with these. Oh man. Anyway, yeah. Thank you all. If you would like to be a Hoe of the Week and get a very cool nickname of your own, here are some things that you can do. You can leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. You can also leave us a 5-star review on an app called Stitcher if you use it. You can feature us in an article that you've written, or you can shout us out on social media. These are some non-monetary ways that you can support us. We love monetary and non-monetary support, and we understand that in these uncertain times, monetary support is not feasible for many folks. Please do not spend your bottom dollar on us. Put you and yours and your community first. But if you can spare some change, some things you can do are to donate to us at PayPal at paypal.me/innerhoe. You can become a patron on Patreon by going to patreon.com/innerhoeuprising, or you can purchase some merchandise at innerhoeuprising.com/merchandise. The links to all of these are in the show notes. Also, a reminder that if you do become a patron on Patreon for $2 a month, you can participate in things like our Slack chat, our Patreon-only film nights, and for $5 a month, you can join our Monday night Zoom hangouts. Those happen bi-weekly, and any patron at any Patreon tier, you receive access to our episodes a few days early, and you receive entry to our workshops and our parties.
And speaking of patrons,
go for it.
We had our we had our 200th episode patron party. It was a lot of fun. The drinks were flowing. We were playing some games. We got to know people. We got good advice. You know, it was just definitely an open forum. I had a good time. Wigs were snatched, replaced.
Wigs were removed. unconventional wine bottle openings occurred.
That's a fact. A lot of things went down,
There's
and
a lot
I
of
had a
group
good
sex
time.
talk. No group sex
Yes,
happened, but there was a lot of group sex talk. That was
I had
fun.
a drunken rant at the end. I realized how drunk I was at the, but yeah, just
We were all drunk at the end. After that, I was
yeah.
just like, what do I do with my life?
Sam texted me and was like, I've not been this drunk in a long time, and I don't know what to do with it. Like, I just there's nothing you can do with it. I'm sitting here like, this is every other night for me. I just
What I actually did was put on 2000s alternative music, and I just sang it
hey,
really, really loud.
that's dope. That's a good
That
time.
was fun. And then I drank
Yeah.
a lot of Gatorade, and I just laid down. I woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning, like, what day is it?
There are
So
no
that was
days
fun.
of the week
There are no
anymore.
days. There are no
It's
days.
day.
Now we have a segment that we like to call Self-Care Tip of the Week, and it is where we give you all some advice on how to care for yourself. Now more than ever, it is very important to care for yourself.
Yes.
Last week, I released a doc of show notes that accompanied the episode for last week, and it included a lot of movement for Black Lives related resources. And my self-care tip of the week this week is to just continuously check that document, because I've been adding more mental and spiritual health resources. And I've also been adding additional organizations that you might want to get involved with in that list. So that link to that list will be in the show notes. And Rod, you have a tip for the
Self-care tip.
folk?
This is something that I've said, I think we've all kind of touched on before, but I feel like now more than ever, it's important to log off if you need to. I think a lot of people are kind of like slugging through all of this trauma and like these videos and constant whatever is going on is right in your face. And I think it's really important to hammer home that if you need to put your phone down, and yes, you might need the information, you want to make sure you're involved, you want to make sure you know what's going on, but you have to schedule some time or just really pay attention to the fact that how you're feeling and how you're responding to it. It's okay not to be numb to it. It's okay to just be like, wow, why is this upsetting me so much still, even though I've seen it a million times? Because it should upset you. You shouldn't be numb to it. You really shouldn't. But it also means that you have to like put your phone down or log off or just pay attention to the cues going on in your body and know that it's okay if you're not actively active or doing everything every second of the day. And that was something that I had to do this week, because every time I put my phone down, I always felt like I was going to be missing the next thing that was going to be happening. And it was important for me to be as informed as possible. But it got to the point where, and I will touch on this later, that's actually about the rise and fall of me as an activist, but it's more than that. I'm still an activist. But it's like something where I realized that I really just genuinely can't handle it. Like, to a certain extent, I cannot, and that is okay. And that took me a minute to be like, I almost felt like not a coward, but like I wasn't doing enough at any given time. But I'm also one person and I have emotions, and I have to be like, I need to stop and step back for a second. And that's okay if you need to do the same thing too. So that's all the self-care tip is. Just listen and know that it's okay if you're not constantly on social media during this time.
Yeah, that's good advice. I want to double down and emphasize when you said like schedule time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we are in a very crucial moment in history right now, and like true self-care means that you are going to have to engage with that in some sort of way, because this is, like, I'm
Absolutely.
talking to Black people here, this is the movement literally for our lives in various different ways. And talking to non-Black people, this is the movement for like the people who are the bedrock of this country, and ultimately like the bedrock of the country that you live in. So engaging in this is self-care, in that it's, to borrow a word from Money from Queer Rock, or a phrase, community care. Like,
Yeah.
engaging in this is like engaging in your own life. But
Yep.
like Rebecca says, like, that doesn't mean that you need to be inundated with bad news all the time, because that's not like a really effective way to engage. And then I'm just pulling things that other people have said,
Yeah.
to pull from something Akua said. when the pandemic started, what a year it's been. When the pandemic started a couple of months ago, Kuba was like, schedule time for when you are going to engage with the news, because you should know what's going on in the world that you live in, but that doesn't mean endlessly scrolling all the fucking time.
Yep.
So schedule time about when you're going to engage, and then also know what you're looking for. So like if you are someone who's doing work on the ground, or you're with an organization, when you log on, know that you're looking for what action is happening today. If you are someone who is engaging with your pocketbook, what the fuck is a pocketbook? Anyway,
why was
I'm
that
like
even
my
in your
parents.
head?
I'm my parents. I like literally became them when I was 25. My knees started hurting and I became both of my parents.
That's it.
But if you are engaging with your pocketbook, know that you're logging on to find out, like to do research on organizations that you're going to donate to. So definitely be intentional about what it is you're doing online, as opposed to just like, what the fuck is everybody saying about everything at every given moment, because that is way too much, and not everybody is saying things that are relevant.
And that's exactly
or good
what I was doing, going to bat with people on the internet. Like I was doing all of it, and I realized that it was another thing. You have to kind of edit, or like you said, go on the internet or on your phone or on your pocketbook with intention, so that you have so you have an exact trajectory, and you're not just like, because you'll pick up and you'll get distracted and it'll be hours later and you have no idea how you got to where you got to.
It's like you're trying to go to the supermarket and you fucking end up at point A, B, Z.
Exactly. So picking it up, going, okay, I want to research this particular thing. Setting that intention also is something that could help for sure. That was amazing. Yeah.
All right. Well, we hope that helps you all. Let us know. And hope that you are just taking care of yourselves in the ways that you need to right now. Here's a good way to do that. We're going to plug an event now. On June 19th, our friends at Tea with Queen and Jay podcast are throwing a Black Ass virtual party in celebration of Juneteenth. If you're unaware, Juneteenth is an American holiday that commemorates June 19th, 1865, which was the day of emancipation of the last remaining enslaved Africans in the United States. To commemorate the day, Tea with Queen and Jay is holding their annual kickback, but this time it's on the web to slow the spread of coronavirus, filled with a Black ass good time, including but not limited to a Black girl show and tell, which I'm very excited to see. The event will be June 19th, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern. Save the date. We will have an Eventbrite link for you to RSVP for free very, very soon.
Look out for that.
Yes. And now we're going to, remember Juneteenth last year? I remember being really drunk.
It was so lit. So lit.
Such a fun
I had a great time.
I'm sure the virtual version will be just as great. All right, now we're going to head into a segment that we like to call Fuck That. And it is our current events segment where we talk about what's going on in the world from our lens.
Yes.
What's going on, man?
Man, we're here to here we go, man.
I do know.
Setting it up. So I think it's important, like we see on the media now, we're talking about protesting and marches and all type of stuff, and it's always like, it's rioting and looting and it's fires. It's crazy. What is this?
It's police beating people up.
Exactly. That's literally what it is. But I went to 2 protests last week, and I was there not necessarily surprised, but very much like, I love people. I love Black people because we just know how to make everything into something worth noting, a celebration or something, you know what I mean? So there's been a lot of moments of just like joy or positivity or music and merriment that have been going on. And there was one that was particularly interesting in People magazine. So there was a couple that got engaged at a protest in, is it Raleigh or Raleigh? Raleigh, woo, wrong as hell. Protests in Raleigh, North Carolina. So congratulations, first of all, are in order for the couple who got engaged. Xavier Young spoke with People magazine and talked about how watching his girlfriend protest and make her voice known cemented that this is the girl that I want to be with. That's what he says. So he didn't plan to propose right then in the moment, but felt compelled to do so once he saw activism in action. He actually had the ring in his pocket. I don't think that he, like, from what he was saying, he definitely definitely didn't have a plan. He was just like, I bought this ring and I'm gonna do it when I have to. But he was just like, I'm gonna go for it, and it became this viral video. He didn't do it for the attention. In fact, she was kind of like, I hate attention, but it was just him looking at her in that moment. He was just like, I need to marry this girl right now. She needs to know I love her. So the moment was caught on camera by another person who runs a visual media company, 4C Visuals Groups, and he just happened to be watching. So he just Xavier Young posted it and said, making history while witnessing history. So he said he made it seem like he wanted to take in some water, like get some water from his bottle because he was tired. And then he just pulled out the ring and it was a proposal. So I was like, that's some sneak stuff. That's really cute. So last Saturday, she said that she wanted to attend a protest downtown, and he called out from his job to protest with her, and he just grabbed the ring just in case. I mean, he was bold for posting that he called out his job to go out there, because I'm like, I know you're excited, bro.
If you try to like get rid of me or like whatever, reprimand me for that, then I've already gone viral once. I'm making the job go viral.
Exactly,
because then it's like, I don't know. You're on the wrong side of history.
It's true. So speaking of history, he was like, it felt another thing. It felt right because it was such a pivotal moment in American history. And he says he wouldn't be surprised if a photo of their engagement ends up in future history books as the part of a chapter on 2020. Everyone's always talking about how this is a chapter in every history book, and we all know we're gonna scan over to 2020 and it's gonna be some crazy shit. And it actually really reminded me of this photo that's kind of iconic that's taken in Times Square of this person. It's called The Kiss.
I know exactly. And I think I was thinking about that exact thing.
Exactly. And to me, I was like, it would be nice if that was something that went down as just like a photo of love, and it just happened to be going on. I think it was J-Day, which was when Japanese, like something like that. I don't know, but it was The Kiss. That's what it's called. And it's a photo that a lot of people know. So I think that's kind of what he was going with, where it's just like, you'll see it in the like history books. And he was like, because 2020, I think it's unanimous, we're in agreement, we're like, this is going down in history with the whole COVID thing and the state of America. Now socially, they're definitely going to talk about it. So he felt like that was something to add to the moment. But there was also another wedding in Philly. There was a couple
can I interject with a proposal?
Absolutely.
And give all of my thoughts.
Yeah. I can see your eyebrows like going like, what's up, man? Go ahead, give your thoughts.
Okay. All right. Maybe working backwards. So I'm glad that you brought up The Kiss, because I was like, oh yeah, that is really iconic and that reminds me of that. Fun fact about The Kiss, or rather not so fun fact, that man did not know that woman and kissed her without her consent. So it's quite interesting that is like this symbol of like, oh, love between a man and a woman amidst these times or whatever. I'm not even sure what war that was, but like, just when we peel back layers, it's like, yes, what was love between a man and a woman in a time where like heteronormativity and like monogamy and marriage was like compulsory, you know?
Yeah.
And amidst like somebody coming back from war, and I'm not saying that this person did that, anything like that, but like oftentimes when people do go to war, it's like soldiers will like fucking rape and assault the women in the countries that they're invading. So it's like, okay, sure, The Kiss. The proposal, because I haven't gathered I haven't gathered how I feel about the wedding either, but the proposal, at first I was just like,
there's definitely strong opinions about the wedding, and I'll get onto that one.
The wedding is more like, wait, what are y'all doing? But the proposal, I think my initial reaction was like, okay, so who are you guys? What is your relation? And it's not like, I don't want to like shut anybody out of the movement. I'm not a gatekeeper or anything like that. I haven't even protested this time around because I do not want to engage with like potential coronavirus exposure. So I'm not anybody to say what is going on the ground. I haven't seen anything outside of what folks on the internet have been sharing and what folks have told me or anything like that. But at first I was just like, are y'all about it? You know, like it's not my place to say if people are about it, but there are also some people who actually really aren't, but also happen to be Black.
Yes.
So it's just like a lot of layers. Like I think it's nice that he sees his fiance in this light, and he's like, oh man, like this is what made me like want to marry her, because she is like fighting for all of us, but also Black women do that all the time.
Yeah.
And I hate the fact that we even have to do that, or we have to, emphasis on have, to assume that position to get respect from people. And that was like, this is ultimately like, I'm sure she's given everything to this relationship, and this is like ultimately like her doing a very like stressful activity in the most traumatic moment in like most of our lives is what made you like, yeah, that's a ride or die. Like it just it feels like it reinforces that ride or die-ness, and I'm just like,
so
nigga.
In this particular situation, the next one we could talk about that one. In this one, I definitely feel like it's less so that because of two things. One, when I was out there, I had moments where I was just like, man, there's just something that stirs me up inside that makes me see somebody out there doing it with me. You know what I mean?
You had mentioned that.
And then the fact that he already has the ring, if he had like been like, he just had, it was weird that he put it in his pocket, but it was also like, maybe he just always has it in his pocket in case. I don't know what the process is of him proposing to somebody. So if you're not really thinking about, I don't know. So maybe you just always have the ring in your pocket and then you just wait for that moment and the right words to say. To me, I can see how it kind of moved him, where he was just like, you know what? It needs to be you. If it was just like, oh, I'm buying a ring because I saw this and like now you're a ride or die, I'd definitely be like, fuck that. But the fact that he had it, and I feel like he was more like, damn, I was hoping it was going to be another time, but there's no time like now, being out here, seeing how important our lives are, and this and the forth. And then I definitely agree with you when it's just like, damn, we always got to do some extra shit for you to be like, I'm trying to settle down. But I think
girl, put your life on the line for Black lives right now.
I fuck with you. But to me, it's like, I felt like because he had already had it, I thought when I read it that he had nothing in his pocket. And that he just did it on some like whim shit. Because I was like, wait, did he have a ring? If he was really feeling it, like did it really just come out of his soul and he didn't have a ring or nothing? That I felt like could have been a little performative. But the fact that he already had it, he was already fixing to engage with her or whatever. So this happened out of nowhere, fixing to engage with her. I have never said that sentence before in my entire life.
I wasn't gonna say anything, but I was like,
I just said it and I stopped. Anyway, what? That was with the pocketbook.
The engagement will occur.
What kind of shit? But yes, he was clearly like getting ready to propose to her anyway, and I think that just kind of pushed the moment forward, and it felt raw and intense. I felt that. Maybe that's the romantic in me. Maybe I'm skimming over. But the next thing,
I think your feelings are valid, and I appreciate you doing that back and forth with me.
Yeah. But the next one was in Philly, and there was a couple. I think a lot of people are just like looking at the photo and they're just like, okay. But then I went and looked for the article, and it says in Philly there was a couple getting married. They didn't say much. Getting married at the same time as a protest. So they were at the Logan Hotel in Philadelphia, and to show, quote unquote, to show solidarity, they walked with the protesters. Well, they walked outside. They didn't walk with the protesters. They walked outside, and then there was like a photo op opportunity. And then on Twitter, like this is where I saw it, people were going in because no, like in that situation, no, because you're not doing anything to, like in that moment you didn't do anything to help. That was purely, did you rip your thing and you're like, I'm moved? No, you see her like emotional, she's taking a photo, and then I think after that they probably just walked away. You know what I mean? Because you didn't walk with them. So to me, that's just as bad as the lady hopping out of her car, grabbing the drill, and taking a photo, and then walking away. What was it for? That was performative.
Yeah. Another thing about this, because this was a presumably cis, I don't know, but definitely heterosexual. Well, actually, I can't really say that. Both of these couples are presumably cis and presumably heterosexual. Mm-hmm. And maybe not the dude who proposed, because I was just like, yo, I love you so much. But the marriage thing, I feel like the answer to what was it for is like, showing Black love amidst a time where we're being killed or whatever. Yeah. I don't know why I said killed so fanciful.
You did say, you did put your hands out and you flourished to kill.
I meant that for the showing Black love part.
Yes, of course.
But, you know, this like, shit, you're falling out of my ear. This, showing this dichotomy or using Black love as a form of resistance, or the iconography of Black love as a form of resistance. And while I do think that is important, and I'm sure that is like touching to other folks, I think me personally, in terms of where I'm at with my politics, is too far ahead of that. And I want people who were like heartwarmed by that, who are cis and het, to just understand that it is very fucked up that straight cisgender people can do this, right? Like, do this in front of everybody. And I talked about this 4 years ago, but it was on the last episode because last episode was a replay. But like, queer Black activists who are very open about their queer love, specifically, like if it's a couple with a transgender person in it, do not experience that same sort of, oh yes, this is Black love, this is the stories that we need to uplift. So to just like have that happen at this protest is just very like, okay, like that would have been cool years ago. And I still like, I love the fact that you love each other now, but it doesn't do anything for me, or it doesn't mean anything to me. It's just like, shut up. It's just like, shut up.
And it's interesting that you say that because and after this, well, I'm going to talk about like my personal experience with protesting, and there was a lot of like joy and, you know, dancing around. It was very conflicting because I feel like being out there with everyone brings up a stir of like a lot of conflicting emotions. Like it's just I don't know, it's like groupthink on extreme, like on turned up to the max volume, because you're just feeling everyone's energies and like you're walking around, and we're here for a very tragic reason. We're here because we're angry. We're here because we're fucking fed up. But you know, there's music, there's live instruments, there's people with boomboxes playing "We Gonna Be Alright" from Kendrick Lamar. You know what I mean? Like, which is a song just about like, damn, we fucked up, but we still gonna be all right. And that's like where people are dancing, they're voguing, they're chanting. There's Palo Santo burning, we got sage burning. Like people burned sage and left it in front of the cops. Like, I just need your energy away from me. It was great, you know. The chanting would change every time you passed a NYPD officer, and we would just be like, how do you spell racist? NYPD, and just going off. Like it was, and every time we passed them, it switched up. It was like, now let them know that we said it. It was like this powerful thing, and it was beautiful to see us making it into something that's peaceful and powerful. But at the same time, what really stuck out to me, aside from like the moments of joy within it, like the negativity, it sucks that we always have to do that. We always have to make it into something positive. I want to just be angry, but I get it, because it's just like you have to find a balance. But something that really stuck out to me, and this is to touch on what you were just talking about, I actually went to 2 different protests that day. I went to one that didn't really have like a name, because some of them have a name like I don't know, like it wasn't like a vigil or anything. It was just like people. I've been just getting text messages of people saying, this is where we're going to be today, let's go. So that's where I just got hopped up and go. So I don't actually know who that was organized by. There was somebody there. I want to shout out to them for a second, because revolutionaries.nyc, that's what they have on Instagram. It's just a group of people who were just like, we want to get somebody out there. They're teaming up with a whole bunch of organizations. They were really dope. And that was cool. But the second half, I really was like, I cannot be in here all day. I need to go to Stonewall Inn, and they had organized something specifically for Black trans lives, for Tony McDade and Nina Pop. But it was so upsetting being there, because there were so many Black people at this first one. And I want to say less than 5% of the people at the trans lives ones were Black. It was so many people, but it was all people who were just like, of different, they didn't look Black. So it was like some people of color, but largely white. And it was just like, I stood there and I like, my heart was breaking. And I think that was the one thing that I put on Instagram. It was like, it was so disappointing how little Black faces I'm seeing here. And I'm like, all lives, like I was about to say all lives matter. What the fuck? Black lives
Get her
matter.
off the show.
Black lives matter, but they don't matter if Black trans lives don't matter. They don't matter if Black non-binary lives don't matter. Like, it's so many. And I was there and I was like, I thought for a while, because I was with a person and we were running on the same path, I was like, holy shit, everybody's going to Stonewall with us. And then there was a point where I was like, oh, they're not going the same direction. We have to go over there. You know what I mean? And it's just like, we talk about fuck white gay men who have stolen our culture and made it into theirs, made it into commodity, made it into something that everyone is easy to accept. And they're like, yes, on every media platform, they love white gay men, even though they're standing on our necks there too. But when you're out there at a protest and there's no Black people there, and it's just the white gay men who are stealing it that are talking and saying these names, it's just like this huge contrast in thought. And it's just like, I'm like, as a Black woman, I'm there, and I could see my Black face in a sea of white people, and I'm just like, got it. There was a moment where they split apart and they said, you know, we're gonna allow Black trans people to walk ahead of us, like to be the front. So we split apart and they allowed them, and that's when the voguing was starting. You know, it was going down, like, it was lit. But it was all of them, all the people who chose to come forward. I want to say it was a handful of people.
Were all of the Black people there?
Except for me, but I was gonna say that was all of the Black people. No, it was just like such a difference. And it's so upsetting because we're still not there yet within our own community. And that's not what we're talking, that's not the whole fight, but that's still something that we shouldn't gloss over. That's something that we need to recognize, that we're miles behind in certain places. And like you were saying, it's just like this heteronormativity of like love and watching it, and it's just like, yeah, that's cute, but there's so much other shit going on. They're just like, nah.
Yeah. I don't think any one aspect is the whole fight, but understanding that every one aspect is the whole fight is, in fact, the whole fight. And if you're not at the place where you understand why, which is why we're going to like do this next segment or these next series of segments over the next few weeks, if you don't understand why that's not the whole fight, then you don't really actually fully understand what you're trying to fight against. Like, if you don't understand why policing and criminal justice and how it affects everybody, especially people at these marginalizations, then you don't get how to dismantle it in the first place, because you don't even know what it's doing.
Yep.
But what bothers me, and it's like fine to not know, like do research, but like what bothers me is like the do not care. That shit is fucking annoying. I'll leave it at that. Yeah. Otherwise, I would just rant forever.
I saw it coming.
There's just a lot of straight people doing fucking annoying things this week. Like that Instagram thing. I'm a Black man. I do not tear down other Black men. Yes, you fucking do. You do it all the fucking time. It's like gay Black men and trans Black men. You do that. What are you talking about? Like, the I'm a Black woman, I do not. Yes, the fuck you do. You shit on dark-skinned women. You shit on fucking fat women. You shit on trans women. You shit on lesbians. Like, what are you talking about? I felt like smacking everyone.
And then it was worse because it was the people.
I was annoyed.
But it was also just more frustrating because it was the people that I knew
who do
were
that
specifically.
Yeah, me too. I'm like, you're like a horrible person. What are you talking
I'm seeing
about?
people who bullied me in high school for these exact same things, and I'm one person, the same person. Yes, who has not grown, who just like. So I'm just like, what?
Shut the fuck up, my nigga. And y'all are not even the people at the protest in the first place. Don't nobody want to see your Instagram. Ah, man. I be getting annoyed, yo. Anyway.
I just want to see you. Yeah, that's exactly why you love. I can just see you sitting there like, man, what the fuck? Just like throwing your stuff. Like, nah, not today, man. It's upsetting. I get it though. Sam be in her room cursing every fucking potty out all day.
I really do, though. I really do. Oh man. Anyway, so now we're going to go into a next segment that hopefully begins to address the kinds of things that bother us about the aforementioned segment. So We're heading into a segment that we call Fuck It, which is usually our topic of the day, where we deep dive into a certain topic, usually with a guest or with ourselves. I'm going to create a mini series in Fuck It, but I do not have a name for it because I do not want this language to be codified, because the people who I'm talking about are retaliative people. Yep. So I'm going to call it Fuck the System, even though it has a very clear name that would not be Fuck the System, if you know what I mean. The subtext is there, FTP. Anyway, so this is a new series in which I unpack the conversation around policing, around how policing does more harm than good through the lens of sex, sexuality, and or gender, in an effort to better inform our listeners as this conversation around abolishing and defunding the police comes to the forefront in the movement to defend Black lives. So these will be, I wrote quick, I don't think this is particularly quick, but more so just 101 type nuggets. And we hope to do deeper dives into these subjects with experts, because I'm not an expert on any of this, in future episodes. Content warning for some discussion on sexual assault and physical assaults towards sex workers. If you do not wish to hear this at this time, we do not go into details, but if you do not wish to hear this at this time, you can skip to the time code in the show notes. So this week's Fuck the System is about the criminalization of sex work, and it is inspired by the fact that last week, June 2nd, was International Whores Day. So quick little segment about, or quick little insight into International Whores Day. It was a day observed internationally to honor sex workers and recognize their often exploited working conditions. It was created in 1970 in France after increased policing on sex workers forced sex workers to work further in secret and thus became subject to riskier conditions and violence. Rebecca did a deeper dive on this holiday on season 4, episode 21. That episode was called "I'm Ugly, Fam."
One of the best times recording.
That was so ever. Funny. That was such a funny, not you talking about International Whores Day, but the rest of the episode.
The rest of it was just like, I've never roasted myself, and it was everyone. It was a crazy episode, but it was a good time.
Yeah, we just called everybody ugly. It was so fun.
Yeah.
But in the spirit of body positivity, and the link to that, as well as the time code in which that deep dive starts, will be in the show notes. But yeah, great episode in general. All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about the criminalization of sex work as a human rights issue and as a issue as it pertains to the movement for Black lives, or the Defend Black Lives movement, or the Black Lives Matter movement. Sometimes I try to say the movement to defend Black lives specifically on the show and in the language I use, and that is simply because there is an actual organization called Black Lives Matter, and there is an actual organization called the Movement for Black Lives. And I'm not indicting either of those organizations or saying that what they're doing is wrong or anything like that, though I have heard critiques, but I want to make it clear that I'm talking about the greater movement and the fact that other organizations are a part of that movement, and then also to say that us as Hoe Uprising are not affiliated with either of those organizations. So that's why I'd be saying that. So to get at the root of this, we must ask, why is sex work even illegal? Like, have you ever thought about that?
I thought about, you know what it is? I've thought about it, but kind of glossed over it. I've always gone, I know it is illegal. And I know at one point in time it wasn't illegal. And then I'm just like, well, it's just, I just thought people were just being prudes. That's what I was thinking. I was just like, everyone's just a prude. They had a moment where like everything that was free just got shut down, drugs and sex and alcohol. It was just like, fuck that. And then it just never got erased. That's definitely an honest foray into how I've thought about it. Just, yeah. I don't know why. Yeah.
I think I just thought like, because niggas is fucked up. Like,
exactly.
It's just a fucked up country. It's a fucked up world. But I never really thought about the fact that like this is actually a serious human rights issue, because you're denying people basic human agency. So according to Human Rights Watch, criminalizing adult, voluntary, and consensual sex, including the commercial exchange of sexual services, is incompatible with the human right to personal autonomy and privacy. In short, a government should not be telling consenting adults who they can have sexual relationships with or sexual relations with and on what terms. It's like, yeah, duh.
That's
why the
just
fuck
what
is this
makes
happening
sense
in the first place? Why is this happening? The response to that is oftentimes, what about sex trafficking? So we're going to talk about it. So sex work is the consensual exchange of sex between adults. Human trafficking and the sexual exploitation of children are separate issues from sex work. They are both serious human rights abuses and crimes and should always be investigated and prosecuted. That's referring to human trafficking and sexual exploitation of children. Laws that clearly distinguish between sex work and crimes like human trafficking and sexual exploitation of children help protect both sex workers and crime victims. Sex workers may be in a position to have important information about crimes such as human trafficking and sexual exploitation of children, but unless the work they themselves do is not treated as criminal, they feel unlikely to feel safe reporting this information to the police. So just to unpack that a little bit further, why do sex workers are in a position to have information on this if they're not being sex trafficked? Well, that's because sex work is illegal in many countries, it's shoved underground, and underground activity be happening in the same spaces in terms of like online and things like that. So one website where someone is advertising their sex work labor could be the same website where someone is selling LSD, or the same website where someone is selling body parts, or the same website where someone is selling kids, because it's all illegal. So it's all underground in the same space, even though not all of them are on the same level of morality. Like, people need to realize nowadays more than ever, like now more than ever, but people need to realize that just because something is legal doesn't mean it's good, and just because something is illegal doesn't mean it's wrong.
Absolutely.
People who believe that sex work is inherently exploitative do not see sex workers as fully actualized human beings with autonomy over their bodies. Like, that's just point blank, period. There's a little bit of nuance in that, in how people view survival sex work. So some people say sex work is inherently exploitative because folks who are impoverished may rely on sex work to live, because race, class, gender, and sexuality and barriers caused by those factors leave them out of other opportunities to make money. But the solution here is not to criminalize sex work, but to eliminate barriers in race, class, gender, sexuality that leave folks impoverished and without resources. If a woman is poor and living on the street because she got kicked out of her home for being trans, for example, you shouldn't be taking away what's able to make her money, but fix the system and allow her access to resources like a stable living environment, food, education, so that she can choose whatever career path that she likes. And sometimes that career path is going to be sex work. So we need to get rid of this narrative that all sex workers are just doing it because they're like down on their luck.
It's so strange that like people never think about, or more often than not, they're not thinking, oh man, the system in and of itself should be fixed. They're just condemning what people are doing to help themselves, or what they choose to do that they don't necessarily agree with. It's just like, okay, but why are we not talking about the problem back here?
Yeah,
like the problem back here is being ignored. It's the same thing. And like, not to take away from the conversation, but it's the same thing with the rioting and looting as a product of people being murdered. No one's paying attention to that. They're just talking about the causation or the consequence, and it's just like, but back here, this is why this is happening.
Back here, people are being murdered. Back here, people don't have jobs. I think I read like 40% of Black people in this country are unemployed, and the fact that we are left out of capitalism as a structure in the first place. So yeah, why the fuck wouldn't somebody, like, I don't
get a job? They're doing a job. You know what I mean? I don't get it.
Yeah. Anyway, so why the criminalization of sex work is harmful, and it is quite harmful. It makes people vulnerable, first and foremost. So when an activity you're participating in is illegal, you can't seek justice or assistance if you are experiencing harm, or you're less likely to do so or try to do so. That's because by seeking help, you're outing yourself as participating in criminal activity. So if you're sexually assaulted, hit, or robbed during a time where you're engaging in sex work, by reporting it, you then run the risk of incarceration, deportation, or fine. So you're in a rock and a hard place at that point. And then also, when you do report, there are these people who respond to the reports, and they are called cops, and they are extremely harmful to sex workers, particularly Black sex workers in this country, for a myriad of reasons, which we will get into right now. So criminalization exposes sex workers to abuse and exploitation by law enforcement officials, such as police officers. Human Rights Watch, this is from Human Rights Watch, has documented that in criminalized environments, police officers harass sex workers, extort bribes, and physically and verbally and sexually abuse sex workers, and even rape or coerce them. Criminalization of sex work also leaves cops negligent to responding to reports of abuse by sex workers from other people who are not cops, from civilians. So I have a list of statistics and notable instances of this. One of the ones that always sticks out in my mind, because it was just such an egregious fucking story, and it's also one of the very first current events that was covered on the show, on the literal first episode of Hoe Uprising, was the story of Daniel Holtzclaw. He is a former Oklahoma City police officer who arrested several women engaging in either drug-related or sex work activity, arrested them, raped them, sexually assaulted them, coerced them. Many women were scared to come forward because he was a cop and they were engaging in criminalized activity at the time of the arrest. So some quotes from the women were, I was scared of the cops. It was my word against his. I didn't think anyone would believe me. You can hear way more about Daniel Holtzclaw on season 1, episode 1 of the Hoe Uprising. That episode was called Fuck Boys. It was also a really fun episode outside of us talking about that. I'll link to that in the time code in which the discussion starts in the show notes. And then just to add one more thing to this that I think is worth noting right now at this very moment is that the woman who came forward and broke this story in the first place, who spoke up about Daniel Holtzclaw, was a middle-class Black woman who was not previously involved in criminal activity. And if she hadn't come forward, this story probably would have never broke. So there is a long pattern of folks who are abused by the cops because they are sex workers and because they are Black sex workers who never say anything because they are so scared of this organization. So if we don't have 50 million stories to tell you, that doesn't mean that they don't exist. It just means that people are not comfortable speaking out. Then we have 2017 story of Celeste Guap. In 2017, the Oakland City Council agreed to pay a settlement of nearly $1 million to Celeste Guap, a former underage sex worker, who was a former underage sex worker. Guap stated that she had been exploited and sexually assaulted by approximately 24 police officers from the Oakland, Richmond, Livermore, and Contra Costa County departments, which included encounters prior to her reaching the legal age of consent. Guap has further expressed an unwillingness to testify due to fears of her own safety as she still resides in the Bay Area where crimes were committed. Because where is she going to go?
Yeah.
Everybody wants to address this thing, but nobody wants to actually give the people who are affected any kind of resources. There's something else I want to say. Oh yeah, like there's like nasty fucking people who do not believe young survivors or do not get into their heads that people should be aware of the fact that they're like courting or coercing underage people, but like how more blatant does it get when it's a fucking cop, right? Like cops clearly know you're underage because what is the first thing that they ask you? Show me your fucking ID. Next instance, we have the entire LAPD from 1985 to 2010, and probably before that and probably afterwards, to be honest. So a serial killer named the Grim Reaper ran rampant. We talked about this on the episode of Hoe Uprising, but I don't remember which one it is, so forgive me. If I find it, I'll put it in the show notes for more. But a serial killer named the Grim Reaper ran rampant, killing mostly Black sex workers and folks addicted to drugs for 25 years, despite a slew of evidence that was accumulated by the LAPD. They never alerted the community and did not make an arrest for 25 years. Like they didn't make an arrest.
They never
and
even
they also
alerted
told
the community.
Anybody what was happening. They had so much evidence, they did not tell anybody in the community that there is a serial killer targeting Black sex workers in the community, which could have saved so many people's lives.
Yeah.
I thought your job was to protect and serve.
Literally.
During this period of time, police officers would actually mark cases involving sex workers, especially Black sex workers, as NHI, and that stood for no human involved.
Holy fucking shit.
That was reported on in a book called Ghetto Side by Los Angeles Times crime reporter Jill Levoy. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. And there's an entire documentary about this called Tales of the Grim Sleeper. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. I think it's on Prime right now. Fuck Jeff Bezos, but I believe it's on Amazon Prime. And that documentary, and I'm not saying this is facts or anything, but that documentary insinuates that the LAPD actually knew what was going on. I mean, they did know what was going on, right? But insinuates that they knew what was going on and let it rock because they did not like just get these people off the street. Like, just let them be killed.
Yeah. Whoa.
Then we have the entire NYPD until 2014, but also probably before and after. They would arrest people if they suspected the person of being a sex worker if they had condoms, which led to sex workers having unprotected sex at fear of being arrested. We have the NYPD as of 2003, according to the Sex Workers Project at the Urban Justice Center. So they did a study or research into the lives of 30 sex workers working on the street in New York City. And they found that 30% of sex workers interviewed told researchers that they had been threatened with violence by police officers, while 27% actually experienced violence at the hands of police. Reported incidents include officers physically grabbing and kicking sex workers, as well as beating them. One incident of rape, one woman was stalked by a police officer. Some folks one person had food thrown at them by a police officer or police officers. Sexual harassment included fondling of body parts, giving women cigarettes in exchange for sex, which is coercion. It's something you should not fucking do while you're on your job or in general. And police offering not to arrest a sex worker in exchange for sexual services, which is effectively rape. So there's that. Then there's also 80% of street-based sex workers interviewed who had experienced or been threatened with violence while working by civilians. This is by civilians. When asked about reporting violence to the police, they reported that police did not take their complaints seriously and often told them that they should expect violence. A person using the pseudonym Carol told researchers, "If I call them, they don't come. If I have a situation in the street, forget it. Nobody told you to be in the street." That's something that they've said. After a girl was gang raped, they said, "Forget it. She works in the street." She continued and said, "I hope that never happens to your daughters. I'm human."
Oh my God.
Then we have this report by the Cato Institute in 2010. They reported that sexual abuse was the second most commonly reported form of police misconduct, only after excessive force. According to the Cato Institute at that time, comparing that data to FBI crime statistics indicates that quote, "sexual assault rates are significantly higher for police when compared to the general population." I didn't include this in my notes for this episode because I was going to talk about this in a later version of this segment when I talk about sexual assault and police very specifically, but there are 35 states in which cops can have sex with people while they're on the job. And if the person reports it as rape, the cop can effectively just say, because there are 35 states where that's just legal, that can happen, the cop can just say, "Oh, that person consented." And then it's like the cop's word against the person's word, but it's like, why are you, first of all,
why are you having sex on the job?
Whenever why are you doing levels? Why are you doing that? But when you're in a position of power, the power dynamic is skewed. A professor should not be having sex with a student. A cop who has a fucking gun and a baton and pepper spray and a taser and mace and can arrest you should not be asking people for sex. What the fuck? So there's that. More on that in a different episode. However, I want to talk a little bit about the Cato Institute because I thought that was interesting. So this information, that 2010 statistic, was gathered as a part of the Cato Institute's National Police Misconduct Reporting Project, NPMRP. It was a non-government, nonpartisan project that has since shut down due to lack of resources. And, this reminds me of something that I found out during previous uprisings in like 2012 and 2016, is that there's no government institute. Maybe that's not true right now at this very moment, but I don't think so. There's no government institute that wholly tracks when police kill people, and there's no government institute, like this is what the Cato Project was doing. There's no government institute that wholly tracks incidents nationally of reports against the police or complaints against the police. So the reason why this was such intensive labor is that they like went through every police department and got this information and manually inserted it into a database.
Damn.
Yeah.
Just hearing that it was shut down is like so gut-wrenching because it's just nothing out there, maybe in small pockets, but like by and large, holding niggas accountable in terms of just like numbers, like sheer numbers. This is what you're doing, putting it back in your face. Like that's really what the power is, saying it's not something that's imagination. It's like, this is what's happening. These are real things. These are real numbers. These are real statistics.
Right.
That's crazy.
Yep. And like there's just this whole thing about police unions and things like that. This is a quick tangent and I'm not well versed in it, so forgive me, but I will put more resources in the show notes. But like just the fact that police unions have the capability over some departments to, when someone has a complaint filed against them, to get certain complaints erased.
Whoa.
Like, so how can anything ever be fully tracked if there are unions, quote unquote, out there
that are erasing?
Exactly. Yeah. More links in the show notes regarding police unions. So now let's like really specifically talk about why criminalization of sex work is a matter of racial justice. So some of these stats are from Amnesty International. I'll just rifle them off. The DC Trans Coalition found that 23% of Black transgender people were physically or sexually assaulted by police because they were perceived to be transgender or involved in the sex trade. Another report by Meaningful Work found that nearly 40% of Black and Black multiracial transgender folks who have experienced exchanging sex work were subjected to pervasive harassment, violence, and arrest. Of the 41 sex workers murdered in the United States in 2015, 17 were Black and 12 were transgender women. And we already know that cops don't care when sex workers are killed. So when we hear about these stories and we hear about the fact that no killer was ever found, it's because there's no effort or resources into finding justice for these people who have been killed. In 2015, nearly 40% of adults arrested for sex work were Black. I mean, come on. If this is not a fucking Black Lives Matter issue, we're 13% of the population. Like, come on. That is like, gotta open your fucking ears and eyes. This is a disparity. This disparity is actually larger for minors, where approximately 60% of youth under the age of 18 arrested for sex work are Black. 60%. Whoa. We are 13% of the population. We're actually like 12.8.
Whoa.
Despite being categorized as victims of sex trafficking under federal law. Wait, what does that mean? Despite being categorized as victims of sex trafficking.
Because they were arrested for something different, but they're categorized as victims of sex trafficking. Yeah.
Even though they were arrested.
Exactly.
Quite interesting. The author of this article has an entire paper on this called Mapping the Blank, Centering Black Women's Vulnerability to Police Sexual Violence to Upend Mainstream Police Reform. That will be linked in the show notes. A little bit about why decriminalization is helpful. I mean, I just told you like why it's bad, so I think that should start
show why
it's opening up some things. But
yeah,
to reiterate, it eliminates the power dynamic between cops and sex workers, in which sex workers are subject to harassment and assault, have their concerns ignored, or choose not to seek help or practice safer sex methods due to fear of cops. And just like to get a little bit more into cops and how I feel about them, or just like the cultures of certain professions. And every profession has a culture. It's like people ignore that when it comes to cops, but like every profession has like lots of people who get into it. Like there's like when we think of like nail salons or whatever, like it's often like Korean folks who get into nail salons. When we talk about first responders and cops, it is like at least in New York City from my experience, it's like generations of white men who are of like Italian and Irish descent who live in Long Island and Staten Island.
Absolutely.
Like that's not made up. That's an actual thing. What were you gonna say?
No, I was just about to say, in New York, if you think of a cop, and obviously not all, but 9 times out of 10, you can visualize them pretty easily because they all kind of, it's just like a culture thing. It's just, if you think about a bodega, you think about certain things. If you think about, you just know. So
people of like ethnicities and cultures and beliefs just get into certain fields. That is something that happens. It is a thing that happens. And so when we think about cops, and they're people who come from these parts of New York who do not give a shit about Black people, and we think about the fact that they are oftentimes men, and we know that patriarchy is an actual thing. We're not fucking making that up. We're not bashing men every episode. That is an actual thing that occurs. There are people from these places and with these ideologies who already do not care about Black people or Black women. And they are
then we put them in a position
exactly where we're asking them to fucking care or treat people like human beings.
Yeah.
When they already don't. Like, come on, that is so fucking obvious. And if you think like this is only like an issue as it applies to Black men, then you're trying to say that like white people, and specifically racist white people, give a shit about all other kinds of Black people when y'all don't even give a shit about other kinds of Black people. So how does that make sense? Like, how do you not see that? How do you not see that people who are more marginalized are going to get hit by this?
And the marginalization doesn't stop. Like, it's like, all right, Black men, okay, what about the people behind them? What about the people who, like, it just keeps going. It does not stop there.
It doesn't stop there. Why decriminalization is helpful? Because in a world in which sex work isn't shoved underground along with legitimate illegal activity, along with what? In a world where sex work isn't shoved underground along with illegitimate illegal activity like sex trafficking, that allows for the two to continue to be conflated. And if they're not continuously conflated, that will actually help to expose actual sex trafficking, since only one of the two will be underground, and you don't have to be like, okay, wait, what is this? What is this? Is this wrong? Is this right? Because all the people who are doing it consensually will not be shoved underground in this like seed of like disgustingness.
Yeah.
Or even subjected to places where they can be. Like if everything is underground and unregulated, then folks have to mitigate through places where people are like purchasing children and they're just trying to do their jobs. And now they're on a fucking call with a trick or something like that. And it's like, this person might be a bad person because no one's vetted this. And if they are, then I can't go to anybody for help. So that's why decriminalization is helpful. And then also, why is it fucking criminalized in the first place? Let's talk about that. Then we get to, what do I do next? What was I watching? Sorry to bother you. I watched it for the first time. Yes, I'm late, whatever. In it,
it's okay.
Stephen Ewan's character, I'm just angry, I guess. In it, Stephen Ewan's character says something that was like, yes, that's it. He's like, something along the lines of, if you show people a problem, they're just going to accept the problem unless you tell them how to deal with the problem. So now I'm giving some instances. And then also Stephen Ewan. Isn't he so attractive? Damn.
Oh, yes.
My boy Glenn. Sorry to the Walking Dead spoilers, but that happened like 5 years ago. So anyway, what do I do next? So here are some tools in which you can engage in the decriminalization of sex work. So first and foremost, I would like you to stop being an asshole. You can normalize paying for sex work, whether you do it or not, but you should stop shaming folks who do pay for sex work, because it's just like, what are you doing? You can support sex workers working in online spaces like OnlyFans by stopping stealing porn, by actually paying for folks' OnlyFans, and then once again, stop fucking shaming people who are participating in OnlyFans by removing stop pirating people's content on OnlyFans. That's another thing. By removing people's opportunities to engage in sex work in online spaces, you're actually forcing folks back into working in a pandemic and back into working on the street. And we already know that like it's mad dangerous because cops and other people. You can retire old language that stigmatizes sex work, like streetwalker and prostitute, especially because sex workers have asked you to do so, and you should call people by what they ask you to call them. You can stop leaning into the hierarchy. So if you're a sex worker who is camming or a new OnlyFans person or someone who is stripping, you shouldn't be stigmatizing full service sex work.
Basically, the overarching thing is to act like you want to help and not like you fucking are judging people. Like, put the effort into. Everyone was quick to hop on this fucking OnlyFans wave. It was so normal and so like, oh man, this is just what I have to do now. And it as we talked about the statistics and how it was like over 50% increase in usage. So it was a wave, like a ginormous wave of people who ran to this because it just seemed like it made sense. But that's only because it was something that was advantageous to you. But there are people who have been on here for so long, and when you were here doing your other job and you had other resources, you were quick to look down on people. But as soon as you were in the same position, obviously, I always need to reiterate, like, this overarching like feeling that you only get into sex work because of desperation. That is not what it is. And I know we said that, but I feel like every time I start saying this, I have to keep saying, like, people can do sex work because they want to do sex work. It's totally
and many
normal.
do.
And many do. So, but I'm saying, like, in this situation, because people didn't have any other options and they turned to it so easily, why is it so hard for you to think that maybe somebody else could have been in the same situation?
You know why? Because people are very much on their like still pull yourself up by your bootstraps type shit. But like, oh, save or whatever, invest, make right decisions for yourself. But here we are, you quote unquote did all these things. So what's up? Why'd you lose your job? Oh, because the government is shitty and it didn't fucking protect you? Yeah.
What a fucking
Why.
surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That can apply to other people too.
And I just want people to keep that same energy when this is all said and done. Like, don't look back and be like, well, I was there, but I got myself. Fuck that. Fuck all of that. Remember where you were at, and that's it.
And remember that you can easily be there.
Easily. Anybody can. It's just crazy to me how, like, certain things just, like, I say this, it's something that happens in customer service, but it's something that happens when you're on social media. It's something that happens when you're not, there's this extreme lack of empathy and this lack of seeing another person who's looking at you and regarding them or recognize them as a human. If they're not somebody that you interact with regularly, if they're not your family, for some reason it's like, oh, I like, you have these hands-off approach where it's just like, well, it's not me, so it doesn't matter. But this is another person who sees the world the same way that you do. And reference to the article where it's just like, I hope this doesn't happen to your daughter, I'm human. It's just like, this is just another person in a situation that's fucked up, or something's happened to them and they need protection just like anybody else does.
Yeah. Little empathy.
I don't know how people can turn that off. It's constant.
Really
I don't understand how you turn it off. It's constant for me. So it's just like, it's so a part of my everyday. I'm handing somebody money to do something for me. Like, if I'm getting a newspaper, I'm handing them money. I'm not thinking, man, this is a machine that I'm giving it to. This is another person. I don't always want to ask you how your day's going, but at the same time, it's just still like there's this wall where sometimes people are just like, oh, just give me my shit, or just like, oh, this is happening to you that I can't relate, so it doesn't fucking matter. And that's so weird.
It is.
Niggas be weird, bro.
Y'all are weird, bro.
Y'all
maybe not y'all who listen, but
others,
your friends.
Your friends.
Niggas do be weird. Niggas do be weird.
Yeah.
I think a part of why empathy isn't practiced throughout towards people in all intersections is because people can look at people as not people somehow. And a good way to start looking at people as people for who they are and listen to their stories is by listening to Black sex workers. So you can follow at the Black SWC on Instagram and Twitter. You can follow Decrim Now DC on Twitter. You can follow Decrim New York on Twitter. You can follow SWOP Behind Bars, which I mentioned in the last episode, on Twitter. You can follow Black sex workers who are media makers, or Black former sex workers who are media makers. Some folks I know, there's Jezebel on Netflix, which is a film about a cam girl, Black cam girl. There's Najee Laree and her podcast Cuntcast. There's SX Noir and her podcast Thought Leader, and other things that come to my mind I will put in the show notes for this episode as well. You can engage with activist organizations who include the decriminalization of sex work in their organizational plans. You can become a part of them, or you can donate to them. Two places that I know are BYP 100, specifically their regional chapters are what you would become involved with, and there's Snap for Freedom, which is a trans-censored and abolitionist-led organization. I think it's led by two former inner Hoe Uprising guests, Deshawn and Raquel Willis. There's Vote for Local and National Politicians who support decriminalization. So last episode I mentioned Ballotpedia, which is a good resource to find out who is on your ballot. A couple of episodes ago, me and Akua were talking about someone who was for decrim, who ran for I think some position in Queens. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting, but they like didn't win. But if you're saying you're like decrim sex work, you have to like vote for people like that. I know that voting isn't the only tool, but how the fuck else how's it going to happen in that position, in that sphere, if people in that sphere aren't there, you know? There is the fact that you should support sex worker organizations and mutual aid funds. So some I have listed here are glitzinc.org, which houses Black trans sex workers who have been displaced by police arrests and detainments. There's Lysistrata, MCCF, Homeless Black Trans Women Fund, which is a GoFundMe, Chicago Sex Worker Emergency Mutual Aid Fund, which is another GoFundMe, and the New York Primarily Oriented Mutual Aid Fund for Sex Workers of Color, which is also a GoFundMe. All of that will be in the show notes. And then in addition to that, I'm going to include some additional reading and listenings in the show notes for that ass. And yeah, I hope that helps. I don't know if it'll be a weekly thing because I need time to do research and know what the hell I'm talking about before I disseminate it on this show, but it'll be a regularly occurring segment where I do these deep dives on like defunding this. Is like
you shit has got to learn, like, niggas. Good, this is real shit. Like there's so many people. A common question that I've seen is like, oh, you want to defund police, then what? And I think people are like, they're like, then crime is just gonna run rampant, and I've seen that a million times. And like there was one statistic that I read that was so interesting. It was just like the one time that the NYPD, or a most recent time that the NYPD actually went on strike, which means like they weren't active, crime went down. And like there's so many different it's so funny. People just assume that like the reason why people commit, for some reason there's like this weird thing where it's just like, okay, if we defund the police, or like if there is no police controlling us, then we'll just all be fucking crazy. But I feel like they don't realize that there's alternatives, or people aren't insinuating that once there's no police, there'll be no justice for crimes, because that doesn't make any sense. But it's also like people are just not looking into other ways to do it. And it's nice that, you know, sometimes when I go on social media, I see people sharing this information. And obviously on this podcast, that's what we're here for, to share this information. But it's just like people are not finding this out on their own. They're just like, it's either policed or bust. And it's like, no, there's 100% a middle ground. There's a lot of ways that we can make it better.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad that you said that. And I will also include links in the show notes just talking about like the abolish the police movement and the defund the police movement, because a misconception that people do have, and that I've had in the past, was just like, okay, but then what? Like, what do you what are you talking about? I've been there too. Because there are we do need mitigation, and like there are people out there who are violent, and who comes and who mitigates that and things like that. But like also the people who are coming and mitigating shouldn't be violent themselves, and they shouldn't be rooted in like these policies and practices that aren't meant to, and were never meant to actually care for the communities that they're existing in. So yeah, it's not just like abolish the police doesn't mean like every police station is removed immediately and then there's nothing, and then it's just like,
and that's what people think.
They're just like, that's not what it means. That isn't what it means. And then there are like so many people answering that question to then what? It's just up to all of us at this point who are not engaged in that work to actually listen to them, because they were not speaking. It's not like they were just like abolish the police and then they like drifted into a dark corner and never said anything. Like there are like
it's like slides of published on
it. Yeah, there are like works published on this. People like speak about this. People write about this. People do actions about this. Like they say what they're talking about. You're just not listening, and it's time for you to do so.
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
you,
I don't know how to. Oh, thank you for listening and adding your insights. I don't know how to segue into this, but if you're listening to this, then you're listening to this.
It's true.
So this next little bit will be about listening. Whether you listen to your favorite fucking mature podcast, if you're watching somebody get it in on OnlyFans, or if you're enjoying some audio erotica, you want what you are listening to be what you are listening to, not what your kids are listening to, or your roommate, or your partner, or even your mom is listening to. So that's why everyone needs a great pair of wireless earbuds. But before you go dropping hundreds of dollars on a pair, you need to check out the wireless earbuds from Raycon. Raycon earbuds start at about half the price of other premium wireless earbuds on the market, and they sound just as amazing as other top audio brands that you know. Their wireless model, the Everyday E25 earbuds, are their best ones yet, with 6 hours of playtime, seamless Bluetooth pairing, more bass, and a more compact design that gives you a nice noise isolating fit. Raycon's wireless earbuds are so comfortable, perfect for conference calls and binging podcasts. Well, both Rodeka and I have our Raycons here. I'm going to do that thing that they do on YouTube so that you can actually see them. Ones? Yes.
Yeah.
And we are not using them because we would like to show you them. But Rod, how's your... I have the rose gold. They're very pretty.
I have the black ones. Do you want to see mine? I have the black ones here.
How's it been? How's your experience with the Raycons been?
So like we talked about walking and going on more walks during like the COVID stuff and like avoiding people, but also making sure you get out and get something. So I have been taking more walks, and these are, I have to say, like they're just great. When you're walking down, it's noise isolating. So I'm like not hearing anything. Bass is booming. I'm walking down the street having a good time, and it was very easy to pair. That was something that like immediately I noticed.
Easy to pair.
Open it and it's ready to pair, and it says ready to pair. It says
that's like it's the fastest
disconnected
pairing I've ever experienced.
Yeah, it was super easy to pair, and like immediately just got up and ready to go. Like usually you have to press a whole bunch of buttons, blah 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 blah. I like the fact that it was just get up and go when you're ready. They fit in my ear snug. They were, I was fortunate where I didn't have to replace they give you a couple of sets of like rubber things to put in there so that you can like get it to fit into your ear. It fit straight out the box for me. So I was able to just like go on my first run. It was already charged, and I walk. I'm walking, but we start from somewhere, and I really like them. They're a good time.
Unlike some other wireless options, Raycons are both stylish and discreet, with no dangling wires or stems to distract anyone during video calls. Fun fact, Raycon was co-founded by your favorite hat-moving Love and Hip Hop star Ray J, and Love and Hip Hop royalty like Cardi B loves her Raycons. So pick up a pair and see what the hype is all about. Now is the time to get the latest and greatest from Raycon. Get 15% off your order at buyraycon.com/IHU. That's buyraycon.com/IHU for 15% off your Raycon wireless earbuds. That's buyraycon.com/IHU. Now we're going to get back to the show. Okay, now let's get back to the show with a segment that we like to call Fuck Me. It is about our sexual, romantic, and dating lives. Usually I do this thing called Ask Media, where I give a review about something sex, love, and dating related that I have watched, but I didn't watch anything or read anything or listen to anything that was relevant. So I'm skipping that this week. But Rod, there was a rise and a fall that I heard about. So
the rise and the fall of Rebecca the activist. Okay. So I said, you see how my voice changed. So I have said a couple of times that before this year, I was not privileged, but I definitely have lived in a bubble of it's not not necessarily it's not happening to me, but very much like somebody else will fix this problem. So like, especially before this show, I mean, I was blind to a lot of things. I was just walking around, whatever happens, happens. I'ma just live my life. I've never experienced overt racism. So, I didn't minimize it, but at the same time, it was very much like, I can do it. I'm gonna walk around and just ignore this. This year, with everything happening recently, this was the first time that I felt really like, bitch, you cannot sit here and not do anything. You can't not donate. You can't not do something. Granted, of course, doing one thing is well and dandy, but I felt like I had to do everything. This is why this is the rise, where I was just like, I'm gonna do every fucking thing I can every waking moment. I was sitting in the house crying, then I'd get up, I'd go outside, then I'm like, who can I help? Who can I donate to? I decided I was going to be on the internet, this warrior, this savior for everything. I'm gonna have these conversations with people. It was really me becoming obsessed and me just kind of like, everything that I can do, I'm gonna do. That was the rise. I felt like a warrior. I felt like I was out here for my people, doing the damn thing and having a good time doing it. Not a good time, just feeling empowered. Taking fucking coffee in the morning, swigging it back. I like my coffee black. Really, just like straight up. Yes.
That's kind of funny to me. I just like cup of Joe, and you're just like,
yes,
time to fight some racists.
And that's exactly what it was. But like, just basically just out here, just like power driving, walking harder, doing it, right? I think everybody kind of felt a little empowered, but for the first time, because it was such a stark contrast to what I was used to doing, it felt like so much. But the thing is, why it became the rise and fall is because it was so much. It was too much. It was like, because I had consumed so much information and I was like trying to share and trying to have these battles. And I woke up one day and I was just like, oh no, I don't feel good at all. I just felt like I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to, like, I could, like, reading another thing. And it was almost, I was talking to somebody similar who was going through something very similar, who was saying like, because of how much is happening, it's almost like your friends and family are racing to give you as much information as possible about what's happening. Like, did you hear about this? Did you hear about that? And people are sharing videos and moments without even, like, they're numb to it because everyone's in it. Mm-hmm. And I was no longer numb to it. The adrenaline had died down, and it was almost like, oh no, like, this is such a sad thing. I was having this moment where, and I talked about it on the live, I was having this moment where, like, I had lost all my hope in what I was doing, in what the future was going to be like, in what other people were doing, because as much as you're like driving it home that this is something that needs to be talked about, reform needs to happen, defunding needs to happen, all this type of stuff, there's like 10 louder, ignorant people who are screaming, I don't understand what you're talking about. What your fight makes no sense. And it was just like, I stopped and I was reading through so much and I was like, oh my God, there's so many people who just don't get it. Will they ever get it? And I felt the adrenaline fall out of nowhere. I think I was in the middle of a conversation where I was just like, oh no, I can't do this anymore. But I had to take a moment. Instead of crashing and burning, it was really just like me stepping back. And definitely, like, it's a joke, I'm definitely still here and wanting to fight the fight. But it was more like seeing me swinging back these cup of joes and running outside. And I'm just like, nah, today I'm going to like chill out and maybe take a bath and maybe just watch some Degrassi and like not fucking do as much. So I felt like it was all in the span of like a week and a half. So my everything was just so frantic for me. And I'm still that person in the inside, but I definitely had to realize that I'm a human that doesn't have to take on the world alone. And I'm definitely not alone, but just like it's good to know that I have the fight in me because I didn't think I did. But at the same time, it's also like you have to balance shit. So as much as I was out there and it was a good time, you also have to take time to be a keyboard warrior for a little bit, where you're just like, let me read, or like let me just learn about. So I've been asking people, and I'm asking listeners, and also Sam, I'm gonna pick your brain soon about like books that I read, because I don't read nonfiction at all, and I also don't read like I've only the most of the things I read are like science fiction or like things like that, and I realize how much more black art, black literature, black everything that I can consume, and that's in ways that I like. That whole blackout fiasco that didn't work out the way that it was supposed to, it made me realize how much I like, not as a farce, not like as a being this person who's on the internet doing it just because somebody says to. I feel much more empowered to be like, nah, I want to read this because I need to, like, I can't tell other people to support black stuff if I'm not here consuming it myself. And it's not intentional. It's not like I'm going like, oh, I don't want to read that because it's black, because that's fucking terrible. I would never do that. But I mean, like, I want to go into it with the intention of reading it because it's black, because I'm just like, this is a part of the experience, and this is part of something that I don't think that I've exposed myself to with intention, and feeling like wanting to do that is something that like I'm moving forward with. And there's so many ways to be this activist other than like performative or being out in the streets stomping the ground, which is what I thought it all had to be. And there's so many ways that I can support my community that I'm like opening myself up to. So that's why it was a joke when I was like the rise and fall of Rebecca the activist. It was more like just realizing that I don't have to carry everything. It's just like this cartoon that's going on in my head. That's too. Exactly what it was. And that's why when I wrote it, I was like, I know what I'm going to say.
It's like a lot of panels and you just like revving up with mad coffee and just like
and
rage.
That's what it is at everyone.
And then like 2 weeks later, you're just like in bed like, yo,
exactly. And that's what when I look back on this week, and that's what it feels like. So I was like, I have to name it this. I have to know like this is what the week was for me. But I definitely needed to go through all of that to realize there's so many ways that I could be enriching myself. And I encourage everyone to do the same, but also just like, it's so eye-opening how much of a bubble I might have been living in, and I'm ready to like shake that up. So
nice.
It's been a good time. Yeah.
I'm glad that you came to that realization. I think it's important for folks to like now more than ever should be retired after this year, because now more than ever I've said that, bro.
Pandemic, curfew, these are just words I never use, and now they're just like every day. Now more than ever,
yeah,
is it.
But now more than ever, it's important to realize that, you know, like, change is like literally not going to, 1, occur overnight, 2, occur through any one particular lane, but 3, occur through your efforts without you like knowing what the fuck you're doing or knowing what the fuck is going on. Like,
exactly.
It's taken, like, if you think I know what I'm talking about or I'm woke or I'm very progressive on this issue, thank you. But like, I've been on this journey for like literally 10 years now, like out of high school, and I'm like still not, I'm not the most woke or progressive or like leading the charge on these issues. And it's super important to realize that there are people out there who are in those positions, and that they've been like doing research on this and writing on this and musing on this, and that though you feel, and I'm sure like you felt like you were placed into something like quite large and quite hard to manage, you're not, even if you're like doing, like if you're just like going to a protest by yourself, which I never recommend to do, but even it's just like you and your buddy or whatever, or you're trying to like make actions by yourself or do work by yourself, I really, really emphasize like not doing this work in mental or physical silo, because there are resources out there for you to understand and like to catch up. Like, people have a lot of catching up to do right now, and that doesn't just look like literally catching up to the protest. You got to know what the fuck you're protesting for. And all the people who like didn't go to Stonewall, it's because they don't exactly know what's going on. Yeah. So it's like really, it's like super commendable that it only took you a week and a half to get there. Because a lot of folks, they'll be out there for like a month, be burnt out, not understand why they're burnt out, and then just give up on the whole movement. Like, that's how hopelessness happens, because you feel like you're the only one who is feeling these ways. You don't quite know what you're feeling, and you don't know that other people are out there, 1, also feeling this, 2, doing work in the space, and then 3, like providing resources on how people can get involved. Like, I retweeted something on my personal Twitter today from Survived and Punished, which was an organization I mentioned in the last episode about a place where people should donate to and engage with, but like they have like a whole 30-day list of actions that you can do to like support the movement to decriminalize, specifically survived and punishes, about folks who are victims or survivors of domestic violence and assault who then go on to like fight back and go to prison for it. So that's their whole thing. But like every single day, it's not like, yo, go out to fucking Foley Square or go out to Union Square or go out to Times Square. We have a lot of squares in New York. I did not mean to do that. That was not like a thing I was trying to do. I was just thinking of places and it was just like square and another square. Herald Square,
Washington Square Park. Yes.
Mad fucking squares. But yeah, it's not like that. It's not every day go out and do an action, which is also like ignoring the fact that people can't always do that, especially during the pandemic. But sometimes it's like, yo, participate in this phones app. Like, we're trying to get this person out of jail who shouldn't be in jail. Participate in this phones app. Oh, this person has 2 years till re-election right now, or like a year till re-election. Tell them if you want to be reelected, these are the kinds of policies that I need you to adapt. Like, it's not, I think when people think about protesting, it's very like, or think about activism, it's very all or nothing, literally.
Yes.
So it's like, put your body on the line or share a change.org petition that you didn't read.
And that's exactly what it is.
There's
like,
a lot of nuance. There's a lot of middle ground there. And then also last episode, I gave a resource that was just like a cool graphic. I don't remember the people who created it, but I did mention this in the last episode. That was just like, find your place in the resistance, and it helps.
Everything's important.
Yeah, it helps you to think about where your skill sets fall in line. So like, not everybody is an organizer, but also not everybody is a podcaster. Like, if you don't know what you're talking about, or if you're not going to spend the time to research what you're talking about, don't talk. Like, don't talk right now. And that's fine too. Maybe you're doing something else. Not everybody's an artist. Not everybody wants to see like your shitty drawing. Now I'm just dissing people. I didn't know where I was going with that. So I was like, what's another example? And then I was just like, oh, let me diss stick figures.
Not everybody wants to see your crap. That's really what she says. Like, damn. Nobody was even here trying to sell you their mixtape, bro.
Don't rap
art.
But yeah. But thank you for sharing that, because I'm sure a lot of people definitely had that experience this week.
I think so too.
Kind of feeling like, yo, now what?
And that's another thing. I don't want to see people. All right, I went to a protest because you went to a protest. That's not it, y'all. It doesn't end there. It's like, all right, sure, you can't go outside. Sure, you don't want to go outside anymore. But that's when you have to go and say, what else can I do? Can I sit in my room and have my phone out and make a difference, or make a change, or do something to help? You can. You can send an email on your phone while you're laying there. You know, there's certain ways to do it. And I'll admit, I'm always the first person to admit my shortcomings, or the fact that I'm always learning as I'm going back and forth. And I think that's just normal. Like, and I think that's what people are saying with the whole normalized movement, but it's normal to receive new information and change course. So yes, now you know that standing outside is not the only way that you can help. So now you can be like, okay, let me do something else. You know what I mean? Yeah. Don't feel defeated. And it's so weird that people are just like, once I find out something new, I can't do anything different. Please do. That's the whole point. That's the whole point. That's all we are as people, learning new things and changing. That is the point.
That's so true. Yeah,
like, but it's so weird that people don't want to do that, because they don't want to admit that they were wrong in the first place, or that they didn't know in the first place. But there's always something you don't know. That's why you went to school. That's why or maybe you didn't go to school, but that's why, you know, when you didn't know how to make eggs, you learned how to make eggs.
Yeah. Yeah.
I cooked chicken with cinnamon once. I learned not to do that again.
The thing is,
I was just like, nah, cinnamon is what works.
The thing is, your point was made, and you didn't need to do this, but I do appreciate you for doing it.
It came from the heart. I was like, wait a minute. Y'all need to know, niggas make mistakes, okay?
Niggas do be making mistakes.
And I sat there and I ate it, and then I learned not to do it again, okay? That's all I'm saying, guys. That's all I'm saying.
That's the moral of the story. If you've ever made chicken with cinnamon, now you know not to do that again.
That's it.
And with that, now that we're delving into now that we've delved into our personal lives, yours specifically, thank you for sharing. We're going to delve into you, the listeners' personal lives, with a segment that we like to call "Fuck You." It is where we read your listener letters. And if you would like to ask us for some advice, share your hotels, rant against the white cishet patriarchy, you can send your thoughts to ihupodcast@gmail.com. Please include your pronouns. Also, because we are in the future, you can leave us a voicemail. We'll play it and respond to it on the show. You can drop us a line at 404-491-9158. Again, that is 404-491-9158. And that number will be in the show notes. We've got a letter. Subject is, I'm about to have my first threesome and I am very, very nervous. This is from Trisha. That is a fake name, and Trisha's pronouns are she and her. Trisha writes, hey, y'all. I hope everyone is healthy and feeling safe and loved right now. Thank you. That is very sweet. I want to thank you guys first and foremost for this podcast. You've given me so much knowledge and understanding of the world. You've also helped me to be more comfortable with my bisexuality. I wouldn't be where I am in my journey if it wasn't for y'all.
Whoop. Hey.
I'm in a committed relationship with a cisgender heterosexual male. We've been monogamous, but we've talked about trying out group sex or a threesome. We found another woman who we are both interested in. After messaging her, she's also interested. We all know each other and our acquaintances, but not that close. This will be me and my boyfriend's first experience having sex with more than one person. This will also be my first time being with another woman. I'm super excited and can't wait to experience this, but my nerves are through the roof. If y'all have any advice on boundaries to set between my partner and I, / all three of us, general advice for threesomes, how to have safe sex with more than one person in the bed, and anything else you might think of, please share. Also, in regards to health, we have all been social distancing and have avoided going places with lots of people. My boyfriend and I have been staying together also. We plan on waiting at least 2 weeks before actually meeting up with her to see if anyone starts feeling symptoms or anything like that. I appreciate your commitment to public health and the health of yourselves.
Make sure to give us that information. I appreciate that.
Don't yell at me now.
Look, we're doing what we gotta do. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much and stay well, Trisha. Thank you, Trisha, and I'm going to let Rodeka take it away because she is the threesomes master and I am not.
I don't know where this is coming from, y'all, but I will gladly take the reins in this situation. So as y'all all know, recently I had a threesome and group sex. Last year was very interesting towards the end, but it was weird. But yeah.
Cinnamon on chicken, baby.
That's it. Trying new things. Sometimes they work out. So first and foremost, I want to say, yay, you're trying new things, but also being nervous is okay. I was nervous before I went into my situations. It's just a new experience, so it can be nerve-wracking. This is a great time to discuss what might be making you nervous with your partner, because it's specific things. Obviously, it's like an unknown, but what if it's just like, oh, I'm used to my body around you, but what if this person, just like different things, what would make you nervous in a situation? Also, have as many conversations about what your boundaries are as a couple as possible, especially since you're monogamous. So you're not in a situation where you guys have had conversations about or maybe you had and you just decided not to do it. But most of the time in monogamous couples, you're thinking about how you guys react with each other, but you haven't had these conversations where you're like, okay, what do you want to do with another person? And this is the absolute most important thing you have to do before you even step into a room with another person, because you could be not comfortable with your partner kissing a person. You could be not comfortable with your partner, even though it seems like you are with it. But like if somebody having sex, anal, what if you guys have done anal together but you're not comfortable with you doing anal with the other person? There's so many things that you have to talk about, whether or not you're comfortable with, what you want to see, what position you want to be in. Maybe he just wants to see you guys eat each other out. I mean, that's whack. He should be in there, or you guys should be in there, but still
whatever.
Whatever floats your boat. I'm joking, guys. I'm joking. There's actually but I'm saying maybe there's like a certain stance. There's things that you want to try out. It's definitely something you want to talk about as a couple and have as many conversations together. But if you're also comfortable talking to her, you guys did say you were acquaintances, but you could talk to her prior, as early as possible. If you guys are texting each other to kind of set the mood and set the set the mood. If you could talk to her about what her boundaries are as well, just having the conversation going as early as possible is always better. But you do have to make sure you take time the day of, at the very least, to talk to her and have a conversation about what her boundaries are, because that needs to be said, and it needs to be, the time and space needs to be allotted for that.
Also, sorry to interject.
Yeah,
This is
no,
from
no.
a non-threesome expert, but just like a bitch with opinions. But I also think like if there are certain things that you as a couple have agreed upon, whether off limits or something that you enjoy, you should definitely let that other person know, because as a third, it can feel like you're walking into a situation where people have all these pre-established things. You're a couple in the first place, so you do have a pre-established bond, but just like all these pre-established expectations and boundaries and just like how you want things to go, and you have to share that with that other person. Otherwise, it's like a very like, oh, we're here to eat you kind of dynamic.
Exactly.
It's just weird. Yeah.
You're walking in, especially if she's coming into your home, she's coming into your situation, she's walking into your den, and you guys are already like, we're good, but she's solo. Exactly. So it's like,
so you gotta make her, you have to actively make her feel very comfortable and very good and very like communicated with and safe.
Exactly. Another thing is to let go of typical expectations. So in the media and in porn, it kind of portrays threesomes and group sex as this well choreographed event that is just like, I knew to go here and you're here. And then you like, sometimes when they're insinuating it, there's just hands everywhere and you're just like, wow, that looks good. That's usually how they do it. That's how you know. But it can be awkward, just like not regular sex, just like sex with two people. It can be awkward. There's going to be moments where you're just like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's going on. You just have to like try and let loose and let go of expectations so that the experience can be more fun. And that's for a lot of things, but especially when it comes to having sex with more than one person. Start with getting to know each other. Like it seems like you're already doing online, but especially when you're in person, usually when you meet someone, even if you're on Tinder, you set some type of like, oh, let's play a game, or you're drinking around, or, you know, 9 times out of 10, you're not on Tinder. You're like, let's meet up and fuck. Unless you're about it, because that's dope.
Some people but yeah.
That's I was about to say. But even in those situations, when the person walks to the door, even though you know what you're here for, you don't have to go straight to it if that's not what you want to do.
Offer them a fucking drink.
Exactly. Because you might have texted and you know the reason why they're here is to have this threesome. But at the same time, you have to make time to build the chemistry, let the sexual tensions build. It could be something which is like, oh, I don't know how this is gonna start, but at least I'm getting to know you. So you can make it less matter of fact and less of a business transaction, unless it is that transaction. You're just here for that too. But that's definitely advice that I would give, because even if I was paying for somebody or just like having something and we're doing straight to it, I'd still be like, man, what's your name? You know, what do you like to do? Definitely prepare with lubes, wipes, and condoms readily available. I went to 2 different situations. There was sex party. There's always that, not always, but we weren't as prepared as we should have been at the sex party. So there was an awkward moment where like we had to find condoms and like you're waiting and you're just sitting around and you're just like, okay. But if you have them readily available and all the tools that you would normally need and then some, because it's more people in the room, it's just easy to go. So you had said something about being sexually protected with more than one person. You definitely want to make sure when you're switching with or between partners, and you are using contraceptives or anything like that, you have to, is it contraceptives? Barriers. You want to switch them out when you're switching partners, so you're not using the same one. You're not just gonna, if the condom's on a penis, you're not going to take it out and then put in another person, because that completely defeats the purpose. But then also having wipes available, make it sexy, make it fun. You know how we learned in school, putting on a condom doesn't have to be boring. But speaking of Degrassi. Yeah, exactly. Yes, I'm very Degrassi minded right now. But yes, just making sure you have, well, go ahead. Sorry.
Also, not just like with body parts or genitals, but like if there is a sex toy that you always use, I would say like suggest that she brings her sex toys and not to swap those for a safety measure, or it's like put condoms over them.
That's perfect, actually, because I'm going to mention sex toys in my next tip. There may be times that you feel like you're doing nothing. because they might just be wrapped up in some shit, depending on what y'all agreed on. It could just be you sitting there and the other person's just doing your thing.
Dick in your hand.
Exactly. And you're just like, because it's not always going to be. It's true. So depending on the type of person that you are, you can expect to, one, be doing nothing. But in those moments, you could be cheering your partners on. You could be like, yeah, stroke it, doing stuff like that. Or you could just like be massaging the other person. I wish y'all could see me. The hands are up. I'm ready.
Rock while you're stroke.
You could be doing that in the corner. hey.
Turn around.
You could be
wine on down. Juk gal. Anyway.
I want to see that. I want to see a porn where they're just in the corner, sex tape, just like in the corner, dancing their asses off while they're fucking.
And Millie cock on any block.
You could expect to be either Millie rocking in the corner, cheering your partner on, or, you can play solo. So you can bring your sex toy to it. They're doing their thing. You're in the bed doing your thing. She brought her stuff. He brought his stuff. It could just be a bed full of fun stuff.
Yeah.
Which is what it's supposed to be. But the last point is, again, to reiterate that we need to communicate. If there's ever a time that you're uncomfortable, you don't want to do something, we cannot predict every moment beforehand. Even if you feel like you've rehashed the information over and over again, you can't predict what would make you uncomfortable. Emotions come up. You could be like, yeah, I definitely want to see you making out with another person. And then in the moment, it's just not hitting for you. If you're ever uncomfortable, it's important to be vocal during this time, because there are so many moving parts. And I was very proud of the fact that I said moving parts. So, haha. But yes, there's so many moving parts in this situation. And if you're trying something, you want to enjoy it. And you'd also, like, maybe in the moment you're deciding that you want to do something new, and it didn't come before, communicating and saying, can I try this? That's what this is all about. So the baseline is always talking. But yeah, just have fun. It's a good time when it's right, when it's the right people, depending on the type of person you are. Maybe you might be on ecstasy,
That your personal experience.
Yes. I did. Man, the chicken and the cinnamon, sometimes after a while you just start talking. But anyway, maybe you're just you're just having a good time, and it's supposed to be a good time, but that comes with work and talking and, just letting loose. So I hope you have a good time. Follow up. Let us know how it went.
Let us know how it went.
Yeah.
I want to add to your communicate last part, and just, it's kind of the same thing, but just like consent is ongoing. So
absolutely.
At any point anybody's uncomfortable, say that. Stop.
Yeah, maybe they came in, you decided to set a vibe, you wanted to have a conversation, and you just wasn't fucking with them anymore.
Yeah.
You just because they came for that threesome, you don't even have to have it.
Have to have that threesome when this meeting is arranged. Y'all do not.
It could just be not the day for you. Maybe you're just not feeling the vibe. Blah blah blah. Just that's fine too.
Mm-hmm.
Don't feel like you have to just because they came over.
And then to pull a page from Akua's book, because she's just been talking about aftercare. Aftercare is usually something that's applied to instances like BDSM scenes, where the dom provides care for the sub or the person who is receiving impact, whether that be physical or emotional. And Akua's been like applying the option of aftercare, not option, but just like saying that folks should practice aftercare after masturbation, after solo sex, after partner sex. So I think maybe like might be a good time, since it is your first threesome, to provide aftercare for each other. And if the third person is interested, maybe even her, just like an unpack session, like, how are you feeling? Like, don't just be like, yo, fucking your Uber is downstairs, bitch. Like,
never do that,
bro. Do you want some ginger beer? Would you like me to make you a Moscow Mule? Like, do you want some water? Do you want some food? Or I could just want some Moscow.
Yo, when you said a fucking Moscow Mule, my face changed. Oh man, that sounded so good.
This is why you gotta watch this on YouTube. There's lots of things missed in audio. But yeah, I think that would be great for all parties involved, especially since it's all of y'all's first time doing something like this. So that might help. But this is just a bitch with opinions, because ain't no threesomes over here, boy. But if this episode made you laugh, helped you learn something, made you feel good, made you question yourself in a good way, or positively moved you in any sense, please leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and or Stitcher, and let everyone you know that you love these hoes, and we want you to know that we appreciate you all.
We do. And if you would like to follow us on social media, you can do so at Hoe Uprising without the G on Twitter, Hoe Uprising on Instagram and Facebook. And you can join our Facebook group by searching Hoe Uprising, CUMMUNITY. Head to innerhoeuprising.com to sign up for weekly goodies via our newsletter, pay a hoe, or check out our merchandise. And if you'd like to follow me, Rodeka, sometimes Rebecca, on Instagram, you can at The Darkest Timeline, and on Twitter at Exist and Crisis.
And you can follow me at SlamRid on Instagram and Twitter, and Carmen Samdiego for travel and food photos. Have a lovely week.
Bye.